Right. Well, welcome, Lucy. Welcome, Deb. And welcome, Andrea, who's just joining us. And welcome anybody who's listening to the recording. I'm really delighted that I'm going to be in conversation with Deborah and Lucy tonight, both members along with two other people of Dare2BU.
Yep.
Based in North Devon, and the title of tonight's conversation is relationships, and I think both of you have some stories to tell and some experience in the field of relationships, and in particular, clearly we're going to be considering relationships from a three principles perspective. So rather than have me witter on, I'm going to hand it over to you guys. You're both in the same room on the one camera, so I'll let you sort it out between yourselves. And yeah, thank you very much for taking the time to join me tonight, and over to you.
Thanks. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having us as guests.
Good.
I've got an idea. How about
you
you tell your story, which starts with how you came across the principles with your relationships, and then
it
will feed into how I came across it and the relationship stuff for me.
Okay.
If you're up for that?
Yeah, I'm up for that. So the Dare2BU name came about because I was in a very unhealthy relationship for over 20 years, and I brought up 3 children in that relationship, and what I noticed was I lost myself in that. It was I was so busy people pleasing. I was the queen of people pleasers, and I was so busy doing that I kind of lost all sight of myself. And very much one of the things when I came across the principles, what I found out the truth of who I am. I kind of found myself, and then I went a little bit deeper and found the truth of who we all are as human beings. And it's kind of a little bit of play on words with dare to be who you truly are is where we are with that. So yeah, I was in a very, very unhealthy relationship, which I got out of. And me and 2 of my children ended up in a women's refuge. And I had a lot of counselling, and the children had a lot of counselling. And at the end of that, what sort of came out of that was that we were somehow damaged or broken. You know, we were going to have to the best that we could hope for was coping techniques, and that, you know, my children would probably always have flashbacks, would probably always suffer from like PTSD symptoms, that sort of thing. And so as a mum, I was really, the guilt that I just felt terrible about myself, really, really, really didn't like myself, was really disappointed and really upset with, you know, what I'd done and how this had all come about. So I was looking on the internet for ways to kind of help my children and help myself. And I came across the principles. I came across Jamie Smart, and he was putting out some stuff at the time, and I listened to a recording that he put out, and I've listened back to that recording a few times, and I can't actually hear, I don't know where, you know, but something during this recording, I was actually cleaning a holiday cottage at the time. I was actually in the kitchen and I was mopping the floor, and I was just like, you listen to music. I'd just got my headphones in. I was listening to this recording that Jamie had put out. And what I heard in that moment was that I wasn't broken and I hadn't damaged my children. And it was so strong for me in that moment. And I fell on the floor. I dropped my mop and I fell on the floor and I sat there and cried. It just hit me. So, you know, it just really hit me. So I went home and kind of tried to say to my kids and my, you know, my boyfriend at the time, and I was like, oh, you know, everything's all right, and they all just thought I'd gone crazy, I think. But something had just touched me so deeply. And when I realized that, it was really difficult to put into words, really difficult to speak to other people about what it was I'd heard, I got on a little bit of a mission to learn to talk about it, because I was so determined that it had impacted me so much in that moment and changed everything for me so much. I wanted other people who felt like I did to feel the freedom that I felt when I realised, you know, all these people had told me that I damaged my children, and actually, do you know what, I hadn't, and I was okay. And so that's what I did for the next few years. I just sort of learned about how to speak about this. I listened to stuff as much as I could and learned to speak about it. And the impact that it had on my children was massive. And the relationship, I was in a relationship at the time, and that relationship, I'm still in that relationship, and that has just gone from strength to strength because of the changes in me. And Lucy here is my niece, and Lucy saw the changes in me, and one day she was having her stuff going on in her life, and one day she turned up on my doorstep kind of wondering, well, what's happened to Auntie Deb? She's completely different. So Lucy.
Yeah, basically that was what happened. It was like, what the fuck's happened to you? And at the time I was having a lot of trouble in my life. I'd from an early age, I wasn't like confident in myself. I didn't think I was good enough. I used to drink a hell of a lot. I couldn't get my head around being gay. And then I met this wonderful person that I got in a relationship with. We had a good couple of years together. And I basically said, let's go and visit Auntie Deb down in Devon. It's lovely. And we came for the weekend, and I was just like, she's really different. And she talked to us about all this thinking stuff. And you know, when you first hear it and you're kind of like, what on earth is she on about? I just heard something, and I couldn't put words on it, and I couldn't explain it. But I went away with a partner at the time, and I said, I don't know what she was talking about, but this thinking stuff sounds really good. And I said, I know I need to sort myself out. And I knew that if I didn't do something, then the relationship was probably going to break down, because I wasn't sort of a very nice person then, because I was all angry and didn't love myself. So I took it out on her a lot. So basically I came home from that weekend, and I'd said to you, hadn't I, we'll start having some weekly chats. I need to learn this. I want to be like you. I want to be happy like you. What's all this? So we started doing weekly Skype calls or something like that. And yeah, just started getting into the principles, and then just loved it ever since. This is about 7 years ago, I think.
Maybe, yeah.
And we went to Space for Connection, where we met Christian and a load of it. And that's where it started, really, when we started mixing and meeting loads of other 3 principal people. And definitely to this day, like, my partner and I actually split up in the end, but for the next few years, we had an amazing relationship. We got into a really good space. And I truly believe that that's because there's only one person in the relationship that needs to have an understanding of this for that relationship to grow and expand and blossom, really. And because I started seeing, like, I felt the self-love I'd got for me and started being me, daring to be me, basically. I wasn't scared anymore, and I thought, oh, I'm whole and complete, and I can just be me. The freedom that gave just really, really helped our relationship.
The changes in you are massive and amazing.
Yeah.
How you dare to show up as you, whereas you always were hiding. You were always trying not to be.
I was scared. So yeah, and then from there, Deb's been doing the principles for quite a few years and expanding the business. My sister got into it as well, so another relationship, she was having some trouble in her personal life and stuff, and she saw the changes in me, didn't she? And yeah. I said to her, you need to go and speak to Auntie Deb. So we sent her down to get principled. And again, talking of relationships, mine and Beck's relationship, we're like best friends now. We're so close. We were always like fairly close, but because then her seeing the changes in me, we just grew closer as sisters. And
and the two of you have moved. We live in a big house now together in Devon, and a few people have come. We've been here since May, the end of April, and looking back, you know, the people that we were before we had this understanding, we couldn't have all lived together. And this, it's a lovely household, isn't it? I mean, my partner lives here and my son lives here, and then Lucy and Becky and me, obviously, and we live in real harmony in this house. It's absolutely, it's a delight and a pleasure. It's lovely to all be together, and there's no way, I don't think, that it would have worked the way it does without all of us having this understanding and kind of knowing that we all have thinking in the moment sometimes, and we don't have to take that thinking seriously. And definitely looking back now, I view, you know, the relationship I was in, I speak about it as the fact that I was in an unhealthy relationship, because when we ended up in the women's refuge, it was very much that I was labelled a victim and he was a perpetrator. And I just don't see it like that anymore. I just see that the two of us there were two very, very insecure people who came together, and those two lots of insecurities just magnified that insecurity, you know, beyond anything you can imagine. And I can really see the part that I played in that and the part that he played in that, and neither one of us, it just looks to me as if we were both just victims of a misunderstanding. And if I had seen things differently, it would have been different. If he had, it would have been different. And I feel nothing but love for him now. I can really see, you know, given the thinking he had, I would have done what he did.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I identify with your story so much. Not in my case that I ended up in a refuge, and you know, it was the relationship I was in was not you know, an identical course, but what was identical was that that misunderstanding and that tendency that I think everybody has, unless they understand how experience is created, to attribute strong feelings, especially strong painful feelings, onto what they see around them, and most commonly that the person or people closest to them. But particularly, I identify with you know what you said about the that first insight of I'm not broken, because that was mine too. You know, that and the relief that, and it's not because it's not simply because somebody says it, Jamie Smart or anybody else, but it's the fact that the truth of it, you know, goes right into your heart, and it seems to me now that what that's touching on is the fact that nobody is breakable or broken, that there is an essential part of each of us that's untouchable, that's just not up for grabs, and it's so comforting. But I wonder, Deb, if I could ask you first of all, just because you spoke about after that initial insight, and you know, you obviously knew you were onto something here, and you were learning more and changing. But just to be, you know, I just wonder if you could say more about the kind of changes that were happening in your life, and you know what that looked like, and if someone were new to this.
It was just the way that I viewed the world completely changed. Nothing, you know, obviously that day when I went home, nothing in my life had changed. You know, I went home to the same house, the same people, the same circumstances, and yet how I saw life changed completely. You know, it was that I knew there was something fundamental about me and my children that wasn't broken and couldn't be broken. And it was just a case of kind of, we had everything we need within us, and if that can be pointed out to people, it's magic when we see that. And like you said, it wasn't in the words, it wasn't necessarily who said it, or you know, it obviously in that moment I was just ready to hear what was said then, and I heard it. And that's, to me, what insights, they're so normal, they're so ordinary. We kind of say all these moments and these insights, and I can absolutely see, you know, we have roomfuls of people from time to time, and we just talk, and you can see people's, it's so easy to have that click, that aha, that oh my gosh moment. It's so common, it's so normal, we so have it. And it totally changed my parenting. I think as much as anything, it was because I understood that I wasn't broken and I couldn't be, and nor were my children. It took a lot of my insecurity away. I didn't have anything to lose. Whereas before, I kind of felt that I was responsible for making sure my children were all right. And I had, you know, and I had to make sure I was okay. So it's like, I have to control my world, and then I have to control their world. And when we're living in that place of trying to control our own thinking, trying to control our own actions, trying to control other people's thinking and their actions. You know, if my children ever felt bad, I would feel so guilty, and I would just go to all sorts of ridiculous lengths to try and make them feel better, to try and, you know, change how they were doing and all this. And sort of then just coming from a place of, it's okay if they don't feel great. Doesn't mean anything. It just means they're not feeling great in that moment. It hasn't got all these connotations of you're a bad mom, you're a bad person, you should have done something different, you're responsible for this. Sort it out, change it, get in there, make this all right, make it all right now. You know? It's life is so much lighter when you're kind of, yeah, they just don't feel so great for that moment, but they'll have a new thought and it will be okay. And I would look at them and know that they were okay, and they were just not feeling okay maybe in that moment, but it was perfectly all right. And then that took a lot of stuff off their shoulders too, because then they didn't have to be all right all the time so that mum was all right. It's this whole vicious thing that we get ourselves into. So the lightness in the house, when it's just okay to show up how you're showing up. It's fine. So I think my parenting totally changed, how I was around them. And like Lucy was saying about relationships, there only needs to be one person in a relationship who sees something, because it's very easy, you know, talking about relationships, say, well, I'm okay, you know, I've come across these principles, I'm good, but what about, they need to know too, what about them? And absolutely what I've seen is, if you think about you bring stuff back to you think about your own grounding, and that is more than enough. Mm-hmm. If you stick to what you know, stick to your understanding.
I'm just, because I think that's such an important point, and it's such a trap that I fell into, and have seen other people fall into, of thinking everything would be better if this other person could. Which, of course, if you think about it, is really what you're really saying is, I need my circumstances, i.e. this other person's insight to change in order to be okay. But I wondered if you had maybe some examples of seeing that play out, either in your own family or your own situation, or with clients, because I think it can be tricky for people to see that.
Definitely. From our point of view, like I say, when Beck was struggling, that's a great example, because all I kept saying to you, weren't it, Deb? You need to fix Beck. I hadn't quite got that bit yet. It's quite a few years ago. I thought she was still broken, and you know, she was going through some shit. So it's like, you need to fix Beck. And Deb just kept saying to me, I can see it now, I can hear it, like, think back now. And I remember you were saying to me, she's perfectly okay. You know, you just need to keep looking after you, and she'll hear something if she wants to hear something and all that. And it's the same with my mum as well. Once Beck then got into it, me and Beck were like, oh, mum needs this. Oh my God, mum needs this. She so needs fixing, bless her. You know, she's so stressed, and she's this and that and the other. And I think to start with, we were a bit like, right, let's talk to mum about the principles when we go and see her. And then we just kind of let go of that, because me and Beck did both see as well that change happens in other people when you change yourself. That, you know, you just see it, it's so obvious. And so we just we let go of the mum story without actually letting go. You know, it kind of let go of us as we understood that. And then, funnily enough, since we moved down here, mum's been coming to quite a lot of our workshops, and we've seen a massive change in her. She's really, really, literally over the last 3 months.
Yes, she's changed.
She's
loads.
really just started to hear something. And before, she would argue the toss with everything you said. Well, no, because they're upsetting me, you know, as stubborn mothers do. But yeah, so that's definitely my example. It's, you know, when you really do see that, I don't know how to explain it really, but when you really see that it is all about you and there's nobody else to fix, then it just happens on its own. It's like it's built into the system, isn't it? It's done for you.
That's lovely. Yeah.
That's very much what we're seeing more and more, isn't it? That there's so much more already done for you. Because recently I had a little falling out with my daughter, you know, mums and daughters. And, you know, when we sort of had words and we fell out, immediately it comes to what started to come into my mind. You know, my thinking was kind of saying, oh right, well, with what you know, you need to put this right, you need to put it right now. You can't, you know, you can't fall out with your daughter, you know, that's not on, you can't do that. And then there was, you know better. and you've got to do it now, it's got to happen now, you've got to do it, and it's got to happen now. And as soon as I kind of just let that be there and realized, do you know what, there's just nothing for me to do. Because when I got into that headspace and I tried to phone her and I tried to go and see her and I tried to talk to her, every time I did that, I made it worse. And when I took a breath and was just like, do you know what, just let this be, just let it unfold the way that it's going to. Stop trying to meddle in it, stop trying to make it happen more quickly or whatever. And sure enough, the next thing, she's on the phone to me, isn't she, and kind of saying, oh mom, I need to speak to you and I need to go. So as soon as I just took my foot off the gas pedal, it sorted itself out. It was already done, and the only thing that I was doing was aggravating the situation and making it worse by trying. What it reminded me of was, near here where we live, there's a huge Tesco store, and in our Tesco store there's the escalators that go up, and you can take the trolley upstairs in the Tesco store, but you get
so advanced down here.
But as soon as you get onto the escalator with your trolley, it just goes, you can't push it forward. There's things on the escalator that stop you being able to push it forward and stop it sliding backwards. So you're just stuck at this pace that the escalator's going. But it's getting you there. It's happening. It's being done for you. There's nothing you have to do. And, you know, as all this was going on with my daughter, it was really reminding me, it's like I was trying to shove my trolley up. You know, I wanted it to happen on my time. And it's like, no, this system that we're born into, it's happening. It's done for you. And you can't make it happen any quicker. And you can't pull it back either. Because what I also noticed, which was really, really interesting, was that the system was working within her too. And even though she was cross with me, she kept falling out of that thought of being cross with me and kept forgetting she was cross with me and trying to speak to me and then reminding herself that she wasn't happy with me. So it's kind of, it was always at work. It was always happening. You know, the system was doing what the system does perfectly in perfect time. And when we just left alone, it's all sorted.
There's a tremendous power, I think, in letting go. You know, not letting go in order to get a powerful outcome, but just in remembering that my job is to let go. You know, when that is the case. Yeah. Oh, lovely. Yeah, nice example. I noticed quite a few people have joined us since we started, and I just, assuming it's okay with you guys, just wanted to invite any of you to come in at any stage if you have any questions, any observations, or perhaps some of this is resonating with you. But, it'd be lovely to hear from you.
Like
Andrea.
Yeah, it's really resonating with me because me and my fiance had a very big argument yesterday, and it was like a screaming match, and we're not usually like that, but everything was coming out, and then my wisdom was, right, I'm getting out of here, I'm going off for a walk, get over this, and so that was fine. So half an hour in the park, calming down, and I'm thinking, right, yeah, I'm ready to go back. I'll maybe apologise for what I said, and it'll all be fine. We'll sort it out. So I go back and I go in, and I'm so sorry for those things I said and that, but he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready for it to be over, you know. And I'm thinking, I've apologised, you know, like, and he was in the wrong too. So why is he like still keeping this going on? And so it escalated again, and then it got to the point where we were both like, that's it. So we don't live together. So I was like, right, I'm out of here. I'm going off home. So left it till today, and I went back, and we just, as we got together, I just said, I am sorry for yesterday. And he was obviously ready now as well. And he's like, I'm sorry too. We're both as bad as each other, kind of thing. But all the thinking that went on from the start of that argument till actually finally seeing him again today, it's just like, it's so frustrating because I am saying to myself, I should know better than this. I shouldn't be having these thoughts and feelings, and like I know better. It shouldn't be this way, but I just wasn't able to get there. I was really trying to get there, like you say with the escalator. I was trying to get there and just couldn't, until I just had to just leave it until it settled itself. But it's good to know that we're all the same.
Yeah, we are, and because that is the beautiful thing. It will settle itself. And I think we do, you know, there are certain people like your fiance or your daughter or your partner or something. We're kind of like, no, we shouldn't fall out with these people. It shouldn't be like this. We're kind of, we want it to be different. We want it to be right. We want it to be right now. And we want, and it's easy to get lost in that until, you know, but the system is always trying to give you that new thought. You know, we never lose that. We never lose that, that foundation of the truth of who we are. That never goes anywhere. We just kind of kick up a load of mess and muck with our thinking, don't we? And it's really easy to beat yourself up. You know, if you know something, you know, you've come across the principles, you know something. Oh my gosh, yeah, you should know better now. You shouldn't fall out with people. But you know,
I'm the world's best at beating myself up, I
think. But yeah,
sorry, I didn't mean to talk across you, Lucy. Go on.
No, sorry, that was it. You can talk. Go on.
I was just going to ask what you thought about this, because one of the things that I have noticed, and it sort of touches on what Andrea was just sharing as well, is that I used to think it was very important to talk about big issues. And that has almost entirely gone out the window now. And I remember on one occasion having a similar row with my son when we were on holiday. We both stormed off, and you know, and we actually met where we were staying was on a vineyard, and we actually met we stormed off in our different directions, but ran into each other still glowering at the far end of the vineyard, and then stormed on. And by the time I got home, I was over it, just as you described, Andrea. But he was sort of half over it, but he wanted to talk about it. And at first I went along with it, and then I could see that we were really starting to get into it again. And I just had enough clarity, I suppose, to step away and say, listen, you know, let's leave this for a bit. And sure enough, as you say, and I love the escalator metaphor. Shortly, he was, you know, we were all fine, and there was no talk. It was quite clear to me that you know, in that particular occasion, talking about it was the worst thing we could possibly do.
My fiance, he likes to talk it out, and I just feel that, and I know that's wrong, but. And that's when I went back today. I thought, I just think he's going to want to talk it out, and it's going to start up again. But yeah, I was so surprised when he just said, "Yeah, I'm sorry too." I was just like, "Oh, thank God, he's not wanting to talk it out. That's it. It's done. Thank goodness."
I met a lovely lady at a retreat that I went on, and she was a television producer. And they made these reality TV shows, you know, a bit like Big Brother, and that. She lives in America, so they're American shows, but that kind of thing, you know, the reality shows. And she said when they did all the filming or anything, you know, it was really, really great when people argued and couples fell out, and you know, there would be big arguments in you know, they really liked that. And then often when they came to kind of put the program together after all the filming had done, maybe they wouldn't have enough filming of the falling out and the arguing, so they would call the various people back to the room, and they would kind of say, oh, you know, can we have a little bit more footage? Will you pretend, you know? And they would say, oh, you know, no, we've got over it, it's fine, we're friends again now, you know, it's not. Oh yeah, they'd say, we get that, so can you just pretend, you know? And oh well. And then they would get them to talk about what had happened. They would start saying, well, what was it she said then? Well, what was it he did then? Well, you know, who said what? And invariably, she said they could get the people arguing again. You know, they could bring this all back and get them. And they said we got some great footage then, because we'd have them right back in the thick of the argument. And that's what we do, isn't it?
True,
it's if we talk it over and we kind of say, well, when you said that to me, it kind of brings all our feelings back, doesn't it? So I think our wisdom, it very much doesn't want us to go over, you know, bring stuff back. And I really noticed one of the times when I went to visit my daughter when we'd fallen out, when I first got to the house, I kind of walked in and she was like, hi Mom, and then we were talking and everything was all right for a little bit, and I literally could see the moment when it crossed her mind again what had happened. Then she turned around, the other day you could kind of see and
straight back into the story.
And straight back into that story. So yeah, I think very, very, very much. And I know, like, within our household, if anyone gets into their thinking about what someone else has done, we all know it's kind of like, no, don't want to talk about it. It'll be fine. It'll be gone in a minute. And nobody kind of pushes or pries or tries to get anyone, oh, talk about it. That'll make you feel better. It's very much, leave well alone. Let's talk about something completely different.
I definitely used to be a talker in that way and stuff. And definitely, like, since living here, a lot of the time, like, I if I get like in my thinking, that I get upset and I cry, and anytime these two are like, you okay, Lou? I'm like, leave me. Just leave me, because I know it's going to pass, and it doesn't help for me to just get into the story and talk about it right at this moment. And but it's just so, it seems so counterproductive, doesn't it? Because we always want to do something. It's just so hard to say, just do nothing.
Well, yeah, and also so countercultural. I mean, it's that's what, you know, it's good to talk and all of this sort of stuff. And I was visiting some people at the weekend who know nothing about this, and the story of somebody who'd been through quite a horrific experience, actually, but they were saying he needs to get into therapy soon, lots of it, several times a week. And I'm just thinking, that's the last thing he needs.
Make it 10 times worse.
But it's having this understanding is it does point just in a completely different direction, but it's not denial. It seems to me.
No, it's totally different.
Yeah. And maybe you have some thoughts on that, you know, because I think it's a subtly different thing. It's not just sweeping stuff under the carpet. But I don't know how you might put that.
I think Deb's example is really good with the, can you explain the people squashing and the pleasing and the in-service thing, because you're really good at that. Because that's like that shows where the balance is, really, doesn't it?
What I saw was, I mean, as I said, my thing, if I kind of get into a bad place, I'm a people pleaser. That's kind of what I do. You know, you can see when I'm not in a great place, I get needy and I'm a people pleaser.
Yeah,
and it looks to me like there's kind of a pendulum swing there, where you can have people pleasing and then what I call people squashing, and it's kind of like this end of the pendulum, if you like, you're sort of desperate for people to like you, and you will do anything, you know, to get people to like you. And this side, you're desperate, just as desperate for people to like you and love you. But this side, you're going to force them to like you and love you. And then there's this place in the middle that to me is kind of the place of being in service, and you're in service to yourself and you're in service to other people too. It just feels like a really, really a good place to be. It's that balance when the pendulum swing finishes, you know, it's that place of balance that we can get to. And it definitely to me comes with a feeling, a really nice feeling when we're in that place. And we do, and like you say, that subtle difference that you're talking about, that tiny little subtle difference, because I know it can sometimes sound as if we're talking about, a great example is my partner that I'm with now. Before we met, when he was a young lad, he was a dancer. And one of my very, very favourite things in the world to do is dance. I absolutely love to dance. So, of course, when his mum told me that he'd been a dancer, I was like, great, we're going to dance together. So I kind of said to him, oh, you know, should we go out dancing? And he's like, I don't like dancing anymore. I don't want to go. And it was when we were very first together. So I was kind of just coming across the principles. And I had this whole, well, if you loved me, you would go dancing, you know, and every time I'd kind of have this whole thing that I would sort of say to him and way that I would be. And it really, you know, I couldn't understand. I was like, and I really thought, you know, if he loved me, he would dance with me. What's wrong with this man? You know, obviously that's what he would do. And all of a sudden, one day, we'd had a huge argument. We were driving together in the car. We'd had a huge argument. And all of a sudden, I saw that there was no connection whatsoever between love and dancing. I kind of oh, you can. I know that he loves me, and I know that he doesn't want to dance with me. So clearly you can love someone and refuse to dance with them, where I'd kind of lump these things together. And it, you know, and I think it's that when we suddenly see that there isn't a connection. So it's not about denying it. It's not about, because when I told my friend, I said I'd seen this. I kind of said, oh, wow. And my friend was adamant that I was settling for a man who wasn't right for me because he wouldn't dance with me. She was like, oh, yeah, you're just settling, aren't you? You're just people pleasing again. You're just settling. And I said, no, I've actually truly seen that there is no connection. And sometimes when we talk about it, the difference hardly sounds like, you know, you can barely hear it in there, but it's a massive, it's the tiny thing that makes a massive difference. When we actually see that raking over things that have happened to us, or raking over arguments, or when we actually look at it and see, you know, there's no mileage in doing that. It's totally different than sitting there feeling really bitter and twisted and annoyed, but deciding not to talk about it. It's different, it's quite a difference.
I can really get that. And what was coming to me when you were speaking was a term. I'm not absolutely clear on the true meaning of it, but it's a term from philosophy or logic called false equivalence. But I think we live in a world of false equivalence, and you know, the cause and causes of and effect are all muddled up, and the principles kind of sorts that out. You know, it shows us where the true cause of experience is coming from, or the true cause of our feelings coming from, and from there's so much hope, because you're never going to sort it out if you've got the cause and effect all muddled up. So, but that was such a beautiful example, and I love the way you explained that, Deb.
Yeah, I learned so much through my own experience of relationships. You know, as I began to see things I definitely could see it in my children and see it. Life is a brilliant, it teaches you things. There's things for us to see and learn all the time, and that never stops. It's really good. You just keep seeing these things. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, I think for me as well, one of the things when I came across the principles was like, I thought all this stuff was going to drop away. Like, oh, I'm not going to be insecure or needy, or I'm never going to be underconfident anymore, and I'm never going to be scared of my experience. And then thought came along again. So
yeah, and it's extraordinary how it doesn't it? The other day I was in a class I do quite a lot of yoga and things like that. So I was in a class in a different gym and had mirrors on the wall, and I kind of caught sight of myself in one of the mirrors, and I was just seized with a feeling of self-hatred, and just thinking, who's that hideous apparition there? That was and in that moment I would have sworn that the horrible feeling was coming from what I looked like as reflected in the mirror, but of course, and then it occurred to me that that it's all just thought. Of course, it's all just thought. It's all the thought that I think I should look different, or what's an acceptable way to and it's got it's past that. Thank God, because it was a horrible moment. But it's perfectly human. We all go in and out of our different ways of just both security and insecurity. Entirely normal, entirely human, and I think that experience is actually helpful in enabling us to connect with other people. Just we don't. It's not that we don't control it. There's an element of grace to it, and there's an element of we're going to get both good and bad, if you like, or up and down, or however you want to put it, for the rest of our lives. I found that also very, very helpful right at the beginning, because I'd been striving so hard to be better, be happier, be more serene, and failing massively. But I wasn't failing at this. That had always been going on, and to know that was the norm, and was very, very reassuring for me.
It's great to know that we're on a level playing field. There's nobody that's kind of, we as human beings, our experience comes to us via the power of thought, and the power of thought isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So we're going to continue to have experiences. And what I've noticed, and what I've seen with you as well, Lucy, is just there's always still something there. It's like, however lost we get, however caught up we get in our thinking, what I've noticed about myself, about you, about Beck, about people who have been around this, there's a lighter experience there. There's something, even when we get caught, it reminds you, and it keeps you humble, and it's like, we can't sort of get too up ourselves and say, well, yes, I know the principles, I'm all perfect now. We can't get like that, because we're soon going to fall flat on our faces if we do that. But underlying it all, when we remember this, is at some point when we're stuck, and at some point we do have that thought that reminds us.
It's always there, niggling away, isn't it?
This is what's going on. Don't worry. You don't have to be too scared. You don't have to get into this too much. This is what's going on. You're okay. You're okay. And I think that is huge, because the ups and downs still, life's a roller coaster, but it makes the roller coaster much more fun when you kind of know, it's going to go up, it's going to go down. And it's really good when you can relate when other people are talking and kind of saying, I've got caught in this, and this has been bothering me, and this has been worrying me. We're not sat there thinking, oh, well, nothing like that would ever get to me or bother me. I'm like, only an hour ago, or only yesterday, or only... Thought does what thought does. And it's a bit like gravity. It's not going to stop doing what it does anytime soon. But understanding that is what's going on, the more deeply we know, that's how life works. That's what's going on. there's a real freedom in that.
And I think Sid Banks was very wise in talking in terms of security and insecurity. There's something that the freedom for me comes from, even when I feel insecure, that sense of some awareness of who I really am, or is what provides the lightness, that the lack of utter hopelessness, that yeah.
And the less of me that the more that we know how this system works and how much is done for us, the less I'm trying to force life, the less I'm trying to do life, the less I'm there all the time. Daring to just look at the truth of who I am and just allow life to unfold. It's so much easier than, I'm always trying to do jobs that are way above my pay grade. And if I just stand back, I can just watch. You know what? It's done for me. I don't have to do that. I don't have to meddle in that. I don't have to get in there and sort that out and be on that. And yeah, life feels very, very, very much lighter when I realise how much less there is for me to do than I was always thinking there was. It felt like I was in charge of everybody. It was my job to make sure everybody was all right and everything was all right. It's absolutely brilliant when you can just see, do you know what? That's not your job. You don't have to do that.
And you don't take it so seriously as well, so we have a lot more fun.
We have a lot of fun.
Clearly. We just have just over 10 minutes left, so I'm conscious that there are a few people who've joined us, and I'd just like to put out the invitation. Do any of you want to make any comments, ask any questions, give any feedback?
I'll just share.
Hi, Chris.
Hi. There's a number of things you said that resonated, and two things that are sticking in my mind are, I have two daughters. One is 6 and the other's 2. And I really want to share this with them. Oops, that's my fan that's making that noise. And sometimes I get caught up thinking about how I can share this with them, but it's always interesting to hear from other parents that versed in the principles, and there's a big part of me that knows that the example that kind of comes from me is received in one way or another, and so that was one thing, and then I kind of hate to admit it, but especially with my wife, I kind of feel like, damn, I wish she understood this, or I wish I could explain it. and it would be better if, like, she understood and could come from a similar place. So it kind of humbly realizing, at the beginning of the call and again, like, damn it, or like, I feel like I get the most tricked with my wife.
Trust me, I'll give you a run for money.
My partner, I'm guessing your wife is hearing and seeing and knowing way more of this than you give her credit for, that you think. Because my partner has never been to any trainings, never listened to anything, never been a part of this, and yet, just by osmosis, just by being in the house with us, and just the way that I show up, he can't help but see something. And it's the same with my children. My children are grown up, but they can't help but see something because of the way that I am. And so exactly, you know, your wisdom has already said, yeah, do you know what? The way to teach this to your children, if that's the right words, is to live it, to be it, and to see it yourself. Because that our actions speak way louder than our words. You know, nothing, anything that you say to them could be interpreted in a million ways. Just show up as the best you that you know how to be, and that will be the most amazing gift that you can give to your daughters. And the same with your wife. You know, I know with Russ, my partner, every time anything happens between us, I just bring it back to me. You know, as soon as I get into my head and think, well, he should do this, or he should be different like this, this is his thing to do. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, rein that in a bit, rein that in. You know, bring it back to me. That's what I find so helpful.
Definitely.
Get curious. Just get curious, because there's so much there. We're being shown again and again and again in the people that we love the most and we hang around with them, you know, our children, our partners. There's always something to be seen there. And it's a case of, if we shut our minds to seeing something new, it's harder to see it. But if we just get curious, it's like an amazing gift just keeps being given to you. You keep getting shown. It's there right in front of you. Just be curious. And have fun. Be light about it. You know, life is fun. Life is a game. It's really cool.
Yeah, well, I find that when I'm not too you know, up in my thinking, that I am lighter, and might not be the best way of putting it, but I feel more connected to my playfulness.
Yeah.
And kind of see that, and one of the biggest things I've seen as far as this understanding, like actually seen for myself, is with my daughters, especially the older one, just because of the way she kind of has thrown fits the past couple of years. And it came without any doing, but these circumstances would arise, not very often, where she would just essentially like go ballistic, like, you know, really get upset and, you know, be banging and screaming and so forth. And I found that I could just be with her. You know, sometimes it was, you know, on the other side of a door, but then, you know, in the same room, just, you know, just quiet, just there to like be present to how, you know, she's feeling, and know that regardless, I love her, and, you know, I'm not upset with her, and so forth. And sometimes, like, she'd, you know, be so upset that she'd come over and she'd be like hitting me or trying to scratch me. And but I guess the big thing, though, is this awareness that would pop up at times during that regardless of how she's feeling and what she's seeing and thinking, that that it doesn't have to pull me in, and that my own kind of health and clarity can be completely unaffected, but at the same time, without losing like that compassion or connection, even though sometimes from the outside it might seem a little bit like not caring. It's another one of those kind of subtleties when it's actually not really that.
It's beautiful when we see that, when we just see, and we can very much, if we're in our grounding, it feels to me, I know, when I've been around all people and my children and other people, if I can just stay in that place of knowing truth, the truth about them and the truth about me, the truth of who we are, if we know that, that's the strongest power in the room. And that is so settling, and people always want to come back to that. Like you say about your daughter, if she's scratching you and hitting you, it's because she's stuck and she's struggling and she wants to find a way back to that place of peace. And I think you can be a beacon in that. And yeah, sometimes it can be interpreted maybe as not caring, but actually just being that. And allowing her to feel what she feels, because sometimes we feel shit, don't we? Let's be honest. It's not always great. Sometimes we just feel frustrated and annoyed, but we're always trying to find our way back. And I think just being with someone and just being in your grounding and knowing that is a great way to bring people back to that.
Yeah, I get, I feel like at times, like being able to be a presence of kind of peace and calm, it shows something. And then the other thing is, the time kind of varies, but every time you stick it out, then eventually, just kind of things flip, and she's like, want to read a book, or let's go play, or like,
it comes back.
It comes back, yeah.
It passes.
And I think that presence, for me, what I noticed, there's not time now to go into the story, but I had my son was quite ill about a year ago. What I noticed was when I could sit with him in that place when he was frightened, and going through some stuff, it was like I wasn't putting anything on to him. He didn't have to be any way in particular for me to love him. I'm not saying you have to be perfectly all right. I'm not saying if he would get upset or he would get angry or he would get frightened, I would just be there as love for him. There was no conditions. And I think it's a similar thing that you're describing with your daughter. You're kind of saying, do you know what? You don't have to be perfectly well behaved. You don't have to. I just love you. And there's massive power in that, because people feel that, and that brings us back to that place I was talking about of being in service. We've come off that pendulum and we can come to that place in the middle, because it's very easy to without even knowing, this isn't spoken stuff, but we feel stuff other people put onto us, when they need us to be at peace or calm or well behaved or whatever it is. And it can put a lot of pressure onto us when we feel that from someone else. And when we just show up and we're just like, do you know what? I love you even when you're cross. I love you when you're hurt. I love you when you're upset. I love you when you're behaving. I love you when you're not behaving. And that has real power, I think, with kids, because with humans, with other people, we feel that. And it brings us back. It's a really good way to ground people around us as well.
Yeah. Thank you guys, gals, very much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good stuff.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you for that lovely response. We are, as you observed, Deb, coming towards the end of our time, and I do just want to have you say something about, you've touched on all working from North Devon, and you're. There are two more of you in the partnership, if I'm right. Is that, am I right there?
Yeah.
And we may well hear from them on another occasion. And I know that one of the things that you do is that you run your own webinars called the Lovely People Webinars. And could you just tell us when they're available and where they're available?
They're every Wednesday at 7 p.m. We always put a thingy out on Facebook each week for them, so it's on Zoom as well. So
and the replays are all on YouTube. You can find them. Deborah Simmons, if you just go onto YouTube and look for Deborah Simmons, we've been doing the Lovely People webinars. You were a guest for us a little while back, Christian. We've been doing those for quite some time. We've got some beautiful replays of the webinars all on the YouTube channel, and you can sign up to our mailing list on our website, which is also deborahsimmons.co.uk, and you can join the webinars live each Wednesday from 7 o'clock till 8 o'clock UK time. We've got a
massive conference.
Yes, I was just going to ask you about that. So you've got a conference coming up in North Devon. Tell us when and where.
Well, that is the 13th to the 15th of September. As you said, there are four of us that have come together. We just decided to go all in at this. We're going to kind of spread the word, and we decided we've got a vision to make North Devon the most mentally healthy place to live and work. So we decided to just put on a conference and see what happened. And some amazing things. Human beings are great when we set out to create something. So from 13th to 15th to September, North Devon, we've got an amazing array of speakers coming.
We've got a psychiatrist from Sweden, and we've got Andy Winter from America.
Oh, lovely.
He's with us. A few local people.
And you can find out about that on our website. We have lots of events down here in North Devon, so if anyone ever wants to come and visit us, you're all very, very welcome. It's a very beautiful part of the country that we live in.
Lovely Diane comes to our retreats.
Yeah.
Hi, Diane.
All the way from Jersey, bless her.
Excellent. So I will also put a link to your website on the notes under the video. So thank you very much for a really beautiful call. Thank you everybody for joining us. I felt very touched by it, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. There will be another webinar in this series in 2 weeks' time, Wednesday the 27th of August, and our guest then is Amanda O'Shea. So
Amanda's amazing. I love Amanda.
Yeah, she's lovely. So thanks everybody. I really appreciate you joining us, and in particular Deb and Lucy. Lucy, did I call you Beck earlier? Because if I did, I really apologise. Anyway, thank you so much for your time and for such a lovely webinar. So I'm just going to stop the